There you go.
Okay, so when you are working on your ribbon skirt, you have to make sure you have enough fabric. So if you have a waist of 34 inches or less, you should only need 1.8 meters plus 0.2 meters for your pocket. So if you have a kit that has 2 meters, you're good if your waist is 34 inches or less. If it's 35 inches plus, you need at least 2 meters plus more. Okay, so the first thing to do is to make sure you have enough fabric, and then you're going to take your measurements. So we're just going to use this one as a sample. So the waist measurement is 34 inches. Then from there, you're going to take that number and divide it by 4 equals 8.5 inches. Take that number and move it over here and add 5. You need 5 inches for your waist and your elastic, and also it has to get over your hips. So if you find you need a little bit more room, you can add 1 more inch. That's really up to you, but 5 inches is enough. So it comes to 13.5. So this is your waist measurement that's going to be at the top. Then you take that number, you plus 4. This is for the bottom of your skirt. So when you're walking, you're not tripping, and it kind of creates more of an A-line shape so that it gives you a little bit of walking room at the bottom. Now you can add more to that if you want, or you can add less or take off an inch if you want it more of a tube type skirt. If you are a plus size at the top, you can reduce that number to 3 if that's what you want to do. So the number is 17.5, and this is my hemline. So I've taken the length from my natural waist to my ankle is 38 inches. I'm going to take that number plus 3 to come to the number of 41. So this is the length of my fabric, because that 3 inches is 1 inch for the hem and 2 inches for the paper bag waist. So here I have my fabric. It is folded. There's a double fold here. So there's a fold and a fold. And on this side, there's a fold and a raw edge. This is my cut line. I do not cut this one. I protect that fold because it's creating 2 panels for the front and the back. So the first thing I'm going to do is to measure my fabric. So I've folded it in half. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 sheets of fabric. And I'm going to measure from my double fold over to 17.5, which is the maximum number I'm going to need to include my waist and my hem. So there is 17.5. Now I'm going to measure 13.5, and I'm going to mark it with my chalk. So this is my 13.5. This is my waistline. Then I'm going to come down 4 inches from this line where the print starts. I'm going to mark straight down to 4 inches because this is my paper bag waist. The next thing you're going to do is that you're going to cut this off. You don't need that selvage edge. This is the selvage, and sometimes we'll have information about the fabric, and sometimes we'll have a color wheel, and that's a great way to select your ribbons. If you are looking for the right color ribbons, you can actually use the selvage. So I'm going to cut this off because it squares up my fabric, and you don't want to sew with your selvage on just because it's a different thickness of fabric, because that's made to go into the loom whenever they're printing the fabric. So we're going to cut this right off. We don't need this. So now that we have a nice straight line and we've gone 4 inches down from the top, next we're going to take our measurements, our 41 inches, and mark down 41 inches from the top of the fabric. to right here. Then we're going to mark 41 inches from this side. And if you have a ruler or something that is straight, you can make your line along the bottom. So I'm going to cut this off, so we don't need this piece. The next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to make sure my fabric is straight on that edge. Then I'm going to line up that edge of the fabric, the very bottom, and I'm going to match up with that other line that I created up here. So the next thing I'm going to do is just mark this down here. So that meets up with this line here. So this is the shape of my skirt from the top. That was based on my measurements. That's 13.5 inches, down 4 inches, and then angled to the very bottom. Down here should be 17.5, so 17.5. Okay, so now that I have my measurements, now that I have my fabric, marked out with chalk, now I can cut. So the next step is cutting the fabric out. I'm going to cut down here, and cut off the bottom.